Welcome back. The world is facing a single common enemy at the moment, the culprit, the coronavirus. In order to fight the scourge and the spread of the illness, social distancing has been advised. But for a country like South Africa, where social cohesion is an important component of the country's heart-fought democracy, how does society forge social cohesion while trying to maintain social distancing? To discuss this, we're joined by Xolelwa Kashe Katiya from the Mapungubwe Institute of Strategic Reflection, MISTRA. Xolelwa, a very good morning to you. You have a program, the Ndlulamiti SA Scenarios 2030, whose quest is for social cohesion. Did you have in mind a time of social distancing when you were putting together the scenarios?
Good morning, Delzi, and thank you for having me again. And yes, to answer your question, we did not have in mind, I don't think anyone in the world imagined that we would encounter this black swan event, so to speak. However, when we started the year as the Ndlulamiti scenarios, we had started a process of reviewing the scenarios, because we were observing that there were some changes in the political landscape, the economic landscape of our country. So while we're undertaking that process of review, then this pandemic occurred. So there's been agreement amongst the steering committee members that perhaps we need to take another look at our scenarios, especially when it comes to the global trends. Because if you recall, Desiree, when we first presented the scenarios, our global trends that we had considered were issues such as the fourth industrial revolution or climate change and so on. But now that COVID-19 is with us, there is that gives us impetus to actually take another look and maybe draft new key driving forces. However, there's still relevance in terms of those key driving forces for our countries, which are mainly social inequality, institutional leadership and capacity, and also this notion of resentment and reconciliation. So they're still relevant. However, we need to also update those scenarios and storylines.
It has been said that in this time of lockdown, the situation has brought to the fore the levels of social inequality. Have you found that this is the case?
Yes, what we've found is that the pandemic is actually revealing these issues of inequality. We know that South Africa is the most unequal country in the world. What has been interesting, though, is how inequality globally has been exposed by the pandemic. So that means, for our own purposes, that this is not unique to South Africa as much as we are the most unequal, but it's a global phenomenon if you look at what's happening in the US and elsewhere. However, in terms of our own local context, how the state has responded has demonstrated that levels of inequality are unsustainable. We've seen the conflict in the townships, we've seen looting, and also how communities have responded to the presence of the security forces in their environments. However, what we need to be looking at is still how to focus on social cohesion, because if we do not attend to that, we could face a situation where there is a social and political fallout post the coronavirus pandemic.
So you're talking about the how the government has responded. Let's talk about the president's address 2 days ago, where he was outlining almost like an extension or shall I say, the economic and social measures that he announced in response to COVID-19. Are those sufficient in terms of closing that gap to some extent?
Well, personally, I think that the announcement by the president the other day demonstrated the progressive nature of how we are responded. It also shows that the state is aware of these deep-rooted inequalities, because the focus is biased towards the most vulnerable groups, We're looking at children on grants. We're looking at the unemployed. We're looking at people who will potentially lose their jobs. So there are all these mechanisms in place to establish mechanisms to protect those, and that is very progressive. And as the president has said, this is just one phase of it. It's not enough because we are only at the beginning of this pandemic in South Africa. So there will have to be other mechanisms. And he did mention social compacting, which is something that we have always tried to promote. And I think that this pandemic that we're facing right now provides an opportunity. It provides a platform for social compacting, wherein we can see the state, civil society, and also the private sector coming together to address or to rally around a common goal so that we can promote a sense of inclusion, so that we can build trust and also demonstrate goodwill. So more needs to be done. And I think specifically when it comes to the private sector, we've seen some progressive companies coming forward and pledging, but also I think we need strong leadership to convene everyone else to come to the party.
Let's thank you again for talking to us this morning.
Thank you so much, Desiree.
Xolelwa Kashe there.